everyone, it's Miss Rossi. Today we are going to create a still life based on the work of Pablo Picasso. What you'll be needing today is your Picasso's Flowers paper from your art folder. This is just a plain white piece of paper, so if you don't have this one in your art folder, any other white paper will work. I'm going to take my label off because I don't need that anymore. I also have a pencil and eraser, something to trace my drawing with. I have a Sharpie that I'm going to use to trace, but you can use any other permanent marker, pen, colored pencil, or crayon. I also have some watercolors and crayons here that I'm going to use to color in my picture once I'm done drawing it. So last week we got to look at the work of Pablo Picasso and we got to see his different periods when he was making art. So we saw his rose period, we saw his blue period, and when we were looking at his rose period, we saw that he was using warmer colors like reds, oranges, and yellows. He was drawing happier scenes because it was a time when he was in love and he wanted his art to show that. Today we are going to draw our own still life, which is an arrangement of still objects or objects that don't move. We're going to draw a vase of flowers to go along with his rose period, and when we color it in, we are going to use all of the colors that make us think of love and warmth like he was using in his rose period. So we're going to start with our pencil today, and we're going to draw a vase with some flowers in it. I'm going to start by drawing a nice curvy line in the center of my paper. Now this is going to be the top of my vase where all my flowers are going to be coming out. So I'm going to make sure I leave enough room at the top of my paper to draw all of my flowers and enough room at the bottom to finish off the bottom of my vase. Now you can decide what kind of shape you want for your vase. Maybe you want a big rectangle with straight lines. Maybe you want it to be wavy on the side and do a wavy line going all the way around. I think I'm going to make mine just big and round, almost like a bowl. So I'm going to have it curved down towards the bottom of my page and back up. But you can decide what kind of shape you want for your vase. It does not have to look like mine. When we were looking at Picasso's work, we noticed how some of his paintings were abstract, meaning they didn't look exactly like real life. So it's okay if your picture doesn't look exactly like real life too. As a matter of fact, when we draw our flowers today, we are going to make those nice and abstract, mostly made up of shapes and lines. Now before I draw my flowers, I can add some decorations on my vase. I think I'm going to do a big wavy line going all the way across. Again, you can decorate yours however you would like. I'm going to do a second wavy line underneath it to make it a little bit more interesting. I think I'm going to throw some shapes in here too by doing some dots. And maybe I'll even get crazy and add some triangles in here also. And right now our vase is floating in the middle of space, and we want our vase to be sitting on a table. So the next thing I'm going to do is just draw a straight line from the edge of my vase to the edge of my paper. Now I need this line on both sides, so I'm going to jump over my vase to the other side and connect that line, whoops, to the other edge of my paper. Now we don't want to draw through our vase because our vase isn't going to be see-through today, and you wouldn't be able to see the table through your vase. So we are going to jump over to the other side as we are connecting our table line. And with that simple horizontal line, that line going from left to right, we were able to create a table and a wall in the background, which we'll get to decorate later on. Now I'm going to go up towards the top of my page, and it's time to add in those flowers. Now, like I said before, our flowers are going to be a little bit more abstract. You can draw whatever kind of flowers you would like. If you have favorite flowers that you see in the springtime, you can draw those. I'm going to stick to maybe some roses because it was his rose period, and some other flowers with some big round petals. So I am going to start maybe just by putting a nice big rose down here at the bottom. I'm going to do a wiggly looking circle. It's a little bumpy and lumpy and not perfect. And inside that circle, to make my rose, I'm going to do a big spiral line. And again, as I'm drawing this spiral line, it can be lumpy and bumpy. It does not have to be perfect. I'm going to bounce that around my flower. Going to connect the center so it's like a little circle, and now I have one flower all finished. Super easy. I'm going to jump up above this one, and maybe I'm going to make a bigger flower this time. This one's going to have a nice big round center. And then I'm going to do a big bouncy line going all the way around the edge. I could add some extra lines and shapes inside my flowers to help bring them to life. Maybe I want to fill the inside of this one with some dots. There we go. I think I could fit maybe 3 more flowers on my paper. I think I'm going to do one right here in the center, another big circle in the middle, and then this one I'm going to make zigzag all the way around the outside. And then maybe in the center of this one, instead of doing dots, I'll do another little spiral. So it's a little bit different. Cool. I think I can fit one more up here and maybe a smaller one down here. I think we're going to do another rose shape for our rose period. And I am just ending my lines once they hit another flower so that this flower looks like it is behind the other one. So once this line I was drawing for the edge of my rose hit the petals I already drew, I just jumped over them to the other side and continued on my shape. I'm going to do another big spiral out from the center here. Maybe I'll add some extra lines around the side so it has even more petals. And then I think I could fit another small one over here. And for this one, again, I'm going to do another big circle. And instead of doing one big continuous spiral, I'm just going to do some curvy lines coming out from my center that are broken, so they're not connected, just a bunch of little curvy lines in there to make my petal shapes. Now that I have all the tops of my flowers drawn, they need some stems because again, they're floating in space and we want them to be coming out from our vase. So from each one, I'm just going to draw 2 lines coming down into my vase. Now some of them, like this one, I probably can't see that one. Maybe I want to draw it over here in this empty space, but if you don't think you'll be able to see it, you don't have to draw that stem. Now this stem is going to hit my other flower down here. So I'm going to jump over that flower and connect it back towards the bottom. So you can decide where you think your stems are going to fit inside your picture. We don't want our stems going over the top of any of the flowers we just drew. They should just be popping out from the bottom and stopping once they hit that curvy line of our vase. Now that my still life is finished, I have my objects here that are still, they are not moving, my vase with my flowers. I can add some decorations in the background. I think I'm going to keep my background pretty simple. I'm just going to draw some stripes on my table. And since I have all these flowers going on up here, I don't think I'm going to add any decorations on my wall in the background, but if you want to add some extra pictures or decorations or show what room your vase is sitting in, you can always draw some extra details up there. Now that my picture is drawn, I'm going to grab my marker and I'm going to trace over my picture. Now I'm using a permanent marker today because I am going to color in some of my picture with my watercolors. And if I don't use a permanent marker, my marker is going to bleed and spread all over my paper and you won't be able to see what I traced anymore. So whatever you're using to trace with, you want to make sure if you're also going to paint that it is permanent, like a pen or a marker or a colored pencil, just so we know that what we are tracing and drawing is going to stay put and it's not going to move if we start to add any water to our picture. Now with my marker, I am just going to trace over all of my pencil lines. If you want to use different colors to trace your picture, you can always do that. Once I am done tracing, I'm going to use my eraser and erase any of those pencil lines that I can still see. And then I'm going to use my crayons to color in some small details and add some texture. But I'm just going to carefully go in with my marker, trace over all my pencil lines, and then I can start to add color. So after I finished tracing all of my pencil lines with my Sharpie, I went in with my eraser and I erased any of those pencil lines I can still see. Now that my picture is all traced, I can start to color it in. Now when we are coloring in our picture today, we're going to focus on using those same colors that Picasso was using during his rose period. So those are colors like reds, oranges, yellows, even some purples and pinks. So I'm going to pull some of those different colored crayons out of my box. And I am just going to color in some of the smaller details in my picture. So since I'm going to fill in the rest of my picture with my watercolor paints, my paintbrush is pretty big. So any of these smaller little areas that I drew, I'm going to use my crayons to fill in just because it's going to be easier to fill in that space. And I also know that my crayon is going to resist my watercolor, meaning it is not going to let my watercolor cover over it. So if I color in these smaller areas with my crayons, then once I add my watercolor, I'll still be able to see all of those cool small little details and decorations that I added. So I am just doing some of the details that I had on my vase, like my big wavy stripe line, my dots, and my triangles. I'm also going to go in and add a little bit of texture inside my flowers once I'm done coloring this in. As I'm coloring in with my crayons, like always, we want to try our best to fill in the entire space so there is no white space left. We also want to make sure that we are doing our neatest coloring, trying to stay inside the lines as best as we can, and just going back and forth nice and slowly instead of scribbling. I'm going to leave the rest of my vase open without any color in it so that I can fill in the rest of that space with my watercolor. I am just going to take my crayon and add some extra little lines of color in my table by coloring in some orange stripes over the lines that I already traced. This is going to create a little bit of texture, so there's going to be some different kinds of lines, and it won't just look flat and smooth. And now I'm going to look up at my flowers. Now with my flowers, again, I can color in any of those smaller little details that I don't want my watercolor to get inside. So maybe like these little circles that I drew at the center of my flowers. I can also add any kinds of textures or extra little details to the flowers that I drew. So maybe I want some extra lines inside my rose, so I can take my crayon and just add some extra swirls in there. Maybe I want to add more repeating lines and shapes inside of some of them. Maybe I just want to trace over the lines that I already drew so they will look a little brighter and more colorful once I paint over it with my watercolor. Because again, we will be able to see our crayon once we start to add our watercolor to our picture. So you can add any kinds of decorations and details with your crayons that you would like for extra texture and extra little pops of color throughout your picture. I think that looks pretty good. I am going to put my crayons away, and now I'm going to grab my watercolor to fill in the rest of my picture. And just like when we were picking our colors to add our little decorations and textures, I am going to stick to my colors like reds, pinks, oranges, yellows, and purples to go along with our rose period theme. Now, maybe you want to add green stems on your flower, and that is okay, but it really does not have to look realistic. You can make your picture whatever colors you would like. I am wetting my paintbrush in my cup, wiping off the extra water on the edge so it doesn't drip all over my table, and I'm going to start by just painting the inside of my flowers. And you can see as I am painting my flowers, since I used the crayon in there, it is resisting my watercolor. You can still see that crayon poking through, and it is not letting my watercolor color over it. And just like when we were coloring in with our crayons, I'm going to try my best to stay inside the lines, fill in all of that white space, and paint as neatly as possible. Before I switched colors, I made sure to wash my paintbrush so I'm not mixing my colors together in my palette. And you can see, even though I'm painting over these pink lines, they are still shining bright through my watercolor, and I can paint right over that center where I filled in with my yellow crayon, and I can still see that too. Now, if you want to get crazy and mix some of your colors together inside your flower, you can always do that. I made sure to wash my paintbrush really well, and now I can add some extra colors inside and let this pink that I used and this orange blend together. Picasso loved to experiment, so go ahead and experiment with your picture and see how you would like it to turn out. Cool, now that my flowers are finished, I'm going to let those dry and I'm going to jump down towards my vase. And I am going to start to color in the bottom half of my picture. I decided to move down here to fill in this space because I want to let the flowers at the top dry a little bit before I start to paint that background wall, just so they don't really mix together too much. So I'm just going to fill in my vase, again, sticking with those same colors, staying inside the lines as best as I can. And again, I can paint right over the top of that crayon and it will shine right through my watercolor paints. I'm going to jump down and do my table next, being careful around my vase since that is still wet. And the last thing I'm going to do is paint in that background. Now you can pick whatever color you would like to fill yours in. I think I'm going to go with my darker pink here and just slowly fill in the entire background, carefully going around my flowers, my table, and my vase so I don't mix those colors together, just to fill in the rest of my picture. I'm going to carefully go in between my flowers. It's okay if our watercolors mix together a little bit. And the last thing I'm going to do is fill in my stems. I think I'm actually going to use purple for my stems. And there you have it. That is my Picasso Rose Period still life all finished. Once you're done with your project, you can upload a photo or video of it on my Canvas page. I can't wait to see the colorful still lifes you guys have created. Try your best, have fun, and get creative, and I'll see you soon. Bye!